Way back in 1822, a piece of legislation was put forward that really threatened to reshape Canada forever. It's known as the Union Bill, and trust me, this wasn't just about politics. It was a genuine battle for the soul of the country, and it lit the fuse on a massive conflict over what Canada was even supposed to be.
So, at its core, the bill seemed simple enough. The English-speaking elite proposed to London that they merge the two colonies, Upper and Lower Canada, into one. But don't let that simplicity fool you. The motive behind it was anything but simple. This was a strategic power play, plain and simple, designed to grab commercial dominance and, you guessed it, political control.
All right, to really get what was going on here, we have to rewind to the early 1800s. See, back in 1791, the Constitutional Act had basically created two Canadas. You had Upper Canada, which is now Ontario, mostly settled by English-speaking loyalists who'd fled the American Revolution. And then you had Lower Canada, modern-day Quebec, which had a huge, long-established French-speaking Catholic majority. These were two totally different worlds, just living side by side under the same British crown.
So who was running the show? Well, in both places, the real power was in the hands of what we call a Tory oligarchy. Think of them as small, unelected clubs of powerful, conservative elites. The Crown appointed them, and they controlled pretty much everything, business, politics, you name it. And they were absolutely determined to keep it that way.
Now, this oligarchy wasn't a monolith. It kind of had two different faces. Down in Lower Canada, you had the Chateau clique. These were mostly English merchants trying to make their fortunes in a French world, and they were deeply suspicious of the local culture. Then over in Upper Canada, you had the Family Compact. These guys were an elite group terrified of that American-style democracy just to the south, and they wanted to build a society in their own loyalist Anglican image. So their local fears were a bit different, but their core belief? Exactly the same. They knew what was best for everyone.
Okay, so when you see who's in charge, this whole union plan starts to click into place. This was not some grassroots movement bubbling up from the people. No way. This was a top-down proposal, engineered by the Anglophone elite to solve the problems they thought were holding them back.
And their strategy was really a calculated three-pronged attack. First up, commerce. Uniting the colonies would give them total control over the St. Lawrence River, which was like the economic superhighway of the continent. Second, credit. A single bigger colony just looked like a safer bet to London investors, and they needed that cash to fund their huge canal building projects. And third, and this was the real masterstroke, politics. They knew Upper Canada's population was booming. In a united legislature, they figured it was only a matter of time before they could just outvote the French Canadians and make them politically irrelevant.
But how did this grand plan land in Lower Canada? Well, the reaction was immediate, and it was intense. For French Canadians, this wasn't some business proposal about canals and credit. No, this was seen as an existential threat.
You have to understand, for French Canadians, this looked like just the latest move in a very long game to erase their unique identity. The proposal hit a raw nerve, tapping into this deep-seated fear of assimilation that had been simmering for generations, really, ever since the British conquest.
Their separate colonial government was seen as the only real wall, protecting their language, their Catholic faith, and their unique legal traditions. This union bill, to them, looked like a battering ram aimed right at that wall, designed to smash it to pieces and just absorb French Canada into an English Protestant majority.
So, faced with what they saw as a full-on assault on their culture, did the people of Lower Canada just stay silent? Absolutely not. The proposal ignited a political firestorm.
And we're not just talking about a few politicians writing angry letters. This was a massive popular movement that just erupted. A wave of protests swept across Lower Canada. There were petitions, public meetings, all making one thing crystal clear. This union was not going to happen peacefully.
So, what was the result of all that pressure? The British government, all the way over in London, facing such intense and organized opposition, decided to back down. The Union Bill of 1822 was quietly put on a shelf and forgotten. It was a huge victory for the French-Canadian cause. But the idea behind it? That was far from dead.
So even though the bill itself failed, the goals of that Tory oligarchy, consolidation and assimilation, they didn't just vanish into thin air. The idea of union just went dormant, really, waiting for another chance to pop up. Think of the failed 1822 bill as just round one, because if you fast forward to the armed rebellions of 1837, everything changes. In the aftermath, Britain sends over a guy named Lord Durham to figure out what went wrong. And his infamous recommendation? Basically, to finish the job the 1822 bill started, unite the Canadas and systematically assimilate the French, a people he chillingly dismissed as having no history. This time, London listened. In 1840, the Act of Union was passed, finally giving the Tory oligarchy what it had wanted all along.
So, in the end, the vision of the Tory oligarchy won out. That failed Union Bill from 1822, it basically served as a dress rehearsal for one of the central conflicts in Canadian history, this ongoing struggle between two completely different visions for the country. It was a battle that would define the political landscape for generations to come. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to think about. Looking back at it all, was there ever a path to a united Canada that wasn't built on this idea of one culture just absorbing another? It's a question that, honestly, still echoes right through to today.